Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by gifts from Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, Hush Blackwell, Barbara and Peter Gattermeyer, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckettes join me shortly, and our topics this week: the Show Me State's governor wants to cut taxes. The Show Me Institute wants to cut debt. And in Washington, will anyone cut a deal? Plus, roast and toast. But we start with our interview segment and focus on a topic that will get much attention in the coming weeks from KCPT and Flatland KC. It's the issue of evictions, primarily evictions in Jackson County, Missouri, where 42 take place on a daily basis. It's a complicated issue with widely divergent viewpoints. Kansas City Week in Review will take an hour-long look at the evictions question this Friday evening at 7:30. Joining me to talk about the issue now is one of the journalists working on the evictions project, documentarian Michael Price. Michael, welcome back to Ruckus. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
And you've done a couple of well-received documentaries in the past year or two here, Our Divided City and Water Rates and Rivers. You're working on evictions for a broadcast in May. Give us an overview of what you're finding and what you're doing.
Well, we're seeing in the Jackson County part of Kansas City around 14 evictions a day. It is an issue. I'm going to be spending time and giving the audience the chance to spend time with people facing eviction, the human stories behind those stats. But I also want to give the audience a chance as well to spend time with the landlords. Not all landlords are rogue landlords. Many landlords have debts themselves. They need the rent to come in to pay those debts. So it's going to be an immersive film. We'll be looking at landlords. We'll be looking at tenants, though, as well.
Legitimate views on both sides.
Yes, indeed.
What's the major reason people are evicted? Is it failure to pay rent?
Yeah, failure to pay rent. What Kansas City shares with many cities across the U.S. is a crisis in affordable housing, in that we don't have enough affordable housing. Around 1 in 7 people, apparently, in our area are paying more than 50% of their income on housing. So that means they're living hand to mouth. Any slight financial knock to their finances means that they can't pay their rent, and so they may end up facing eviction.
I'm sure this varies from case to case, but generally speaking, how long can someone go without paying rent before being evicted?
It does vary. I've been focusing so far on Jackson County and its court system, and there things can seem to move quite quickly. Once the eviction notice has been put in place, landlords are able to move things along quite quickly, and tenants there, I'm seeing, are being processed by the courts, at least, within a couple of weeks. Some of them are saying to me, this is too fast. I don't know what my rights are. Where do I get a lawyer? I'm not being given enough time in order to put in place my own defense.
Is there any kind of program established by Jackson County or Kansas City, Missouri, to deal with these people once they're evicted? Say a family is evicted, what happens to them?
Well, I'm finding out what happens to them, and it's utterly terrifying for them. I mean,
there's not some program where the city says, come with us, we'll find you a place to live for the next few weeks? Or?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there are non-profits out there that are working in this area, like Catholic Charities, for example, like Bishop Sullivan, that are doing what they can do with their limited resources to house people. But some of these people who are evicted, some of these families end up in homeless shelters, living in cars, living in motels. They find themselves in more and more debt.
And it would be especially brutal for school-age children, I would think.
Yeah, Barbara Shelley has just had an article published on Flatland, KCPT's online magazine, looking at how evictions are impacting on the schools, impacting on students. It does disadvantage students when they have to move from school to school as their family is evicted.
You were at the event, I believe, last Friday when KCPT and the library invited people to come in and talk about evictions in the area. What's your sense of what happened?
There's a lot of concern out there, and there's a lot of passion about it. There's a lot of concern about housing more generally. Gentrification is something that people want to talk about.
Explain that.
Well, exactly. It's a big term, gentrification.
People moving back into neighborhoods they once abandoned?
My understanding of gentrification is where the cost of housing rises to the point that low-income families are being displaced either because they can't afford the rents or because they can't afford the property taxes. There are parts of the city where arguably gentrification is starting to be seen. People talk about Beacon Hill, people are starting to talk about Mannheim as well, east of Troost, where high-end developments are taking place that people, in the area feeling are putting their own property taxes under pressure.
So we'll learn a great deal when we see this broadcast tomorrow evening at 7:30, Kansas City Week in Review, and I think it rebroadcast Sunday morning at 10:30. And we'll look forward to your program coming in late May about evictions in the metro area. Michael, thank you very much. Great to see you again.
Great to see you. Thank you, Mike.
That's documentarian Michael Price. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus. Patrick Tuohy is Director of Municipal Policy at the Show Me Institute, a free market think tank. Gwen Grant is President and CEO of the Urban League in Kansas City. Sean Saving is a labor activist, part of the Heartland Labor Forum at KKFI Radio. And attorney Laura McConwell is a former three-term mayor of Mission, Kansas. Want to thank Laura for coming in at the last minute. Woody Kozad was scheduled to be on the program, got tied up with his work in Jeff City. And Laura, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us for the program. Well, let's start with a couple of quotes from Crosby Kemper III, who, among other things, co-founded the Show Me Institute with Rex Singfield. Speaking of Kansas City, Crosby said, "We have high debt and therefore high taxes." Speaking of the Power and Light District, he said, "It's a subsidy of the drinking habits of young Johnson Countyans." Those quotable observations were part of a Kansas City Star story, noting that the city's debt is about $1.5 billion, or roughly $3,100 for every adult and child. Add to that city employee pension programs, now $811 million short of commitments to employees. One more Kemper quote, "We're pretty much off the charts relative to our peers," meaning Kansas City's debt is higher than many similar-sized cities. So how did Kansas City get to this point? Let's ask another Show Me Institute official, Patrick Tuohy.
Well, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody in Kansas City. We've known about this for years. There have been a number of articles, studies that point out that Kansas City carries an awful lot of debt. Frankly, I think the biggest problem is that our city leaders can't say no. Whether it's politicians who want to say yes to every spending project, or the Kansas City Star, which endorses every spending project, or the Civic Association, frankly, which doesn't step forward and say no. So we spend, and then we're shocked later on to find that we've got a lot of debt.
$1.5 billion in debt, Gwen. You've observed Kansas City's financial practices for a long time. How did we get to this point?
So I think it's a combination of things. I agree with Patrick that part of the problem is how much the city diverts tax revenue to projects to support private economic development activity. And then we don't get the economic activity taxes that they project. Those who want to do these projects come in and they paint these grandiose pictures of how much revenue the city's going to get, and we don't get it. And so consequently, the city has to cover the debt on those projects. Secondly, you have the challenge of the pension fund, and how the city manages that pension fund. And in the new environment of pensions, municipalities are challenged to figure out how they're going to cover the cost, the growing cost of pensions, when most for-profit and other nonprofit organizations have backed away from making significant investments and put the responsibility on the employee to invest in their pensions.
But what those institutions have done is also cut their retirement contributions.
Exactly.
I mean, the reason 401ks cost less is because companies put less money into the retirement system. But they're less economically efficient. And it's been shown that it costs more money overall for people to have the same security of retirement with a 401k system than it does with a defined benefit. So the problem is with the pension plans, but how they're being managed. And maybe the state of Missouri needs to look at a statewide public employees' pension funds, so you have a little bit bigger system, you can manage some of these risks a little bit better. The state of California does that. I don't think Missouri has that. We're doing very small pension funds for city employees that are being managed. You'd have to understand, question what's going on with the manager of these
Laura,
funds.
you've dealt with the problems of trying to manage a city. The city manager of Kansas City, Missouri, Troy Schulte, defended what's going on at City Hall. Is it defensible?
Well, he's inherited some issues, and like Gwen said, there were some private developments that the city chose to put some public dollars in that haven't turned out the way that they had anticipated, and I was not involved in that, so I don't know whether those were good investments or bad investments. I will say his reference in the paper had to do with infrastructure projects, and Kansas City, Missouri has a lot of failing and aging infrastructure that needs to be maintained, and if you continue to defer that and kick it down, it's going to be a lot more expensive at the end of the day.
Well, let me go back to you, Patrick. You work with Crosby at the Show Me Institute. Tell him to get some of those funny lines when he appears on Ruckus, like when he says the P&L district is a subsidy for the drinking habits of young Johnson Countyans.
So, 15, 20 years ago, the zeitgeist around cities was we need to attract the creative class. We need to bring the young in. And so Kansas City fell all over itself to try to build an entertainment district. It hasn't created any new jobs. It hasn't created any new businesses. But we simply dump money in because we think, frankly, that Kansas City isn't worth living in unless we subsidize it.
Now, if I remember correctly, it cost about $12 million a year from the general fund.
That's right.
To pay the bonded indebtedness for the Power and Light District. But is there a justification to keep the Power and Light district going?
Well, I don't think you want to shut it down now. I mean, you're in.
Is it justified, though? Is its existence justified by all the attention it's gotten nationally?
I mean, we have a revitalized downtown, so you have to attribute some of that to the Power and Light District and the growth that we're seeing there. And that's a good thing for Kansas City overall, to have a vibrant downtown.
But on net, it's a loss.
And also it was a much bigger thing. They wanted to move the ballpark, the baseball stadium downtown. There were a lot of other things that were going to create better synergy to get more bang for your buck.
But the Sprint Center is high performing and it's making money, so they've got to figure out how to make the Power and Light
Well, it has an income from the hotel tax and the rental car tax. I mean, that's continuing income.
Let's be clear about the Power and Light. That started in the Crossroads Arts District organically on its own in the late 90s. And that was growing quite well. It was slow, but it was actually happening on its own. It was paying for itself because it wasn't costing anything. People were redeveloping these old areas on their own. And then they come along and say, well, we need to dump a ton of public money into this big fancy thing that has anything to do with arts. It's a bunch of out-of-town corporations.
Well, no, I think there was quite a project underway to get the Power and Light District. Kate Barnes was
that's what I mean.
big on
That's what I mean. This was unnecessary.
Sean has inadvertently discovered the benefits of the free market. The Crossroads was growing on its own at a slow pace, but at a responsible pace. Then Kay Barnes comes in. We dump a bunch of money into
it.
She says at the time, I think 2006, people are going to be calling us geniuses in 10 years. Well, it's been 10 years. No one is calling.
Well, if Sean has discovered what you said, let's stop the discussion there and move on. The federal tax cut has begun, and presumably people have begun seeing more money in their paychecks. Now Missouri's GOP governor, Eric Greitens, wants to give the state's residents another tax break. Greitens calls for the income tax rate to drop from 5.9 to 5.3%, and for the corporate rate to fall from 6.25% to 4.25%. Because lowering taxes is Republican orthodoxy, one might think Greitens' fellow Republicans would back his plan. But early reports suggest there is strong resistance. So what in the world would cause Republicans to resist a tax cut? And we start with Laura.
It's because all the available deductions are changing with this proposed tax cut, and I haven't studied it completely, but some are concerned that it's actually a net tax increase as opposed to a net tax reduction, which is what causes them some concern on the one side. And then on the other side, based on what we talked about a few weeks ago about Governor Greitens, as he really hasn't endeared himself to a lot of people, that they're going to want to give him a benefit of the doubt and work with him. And this is when that comes home to roost.
His problem, I would guess, Gwen, goes well beyond tax cuts.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they just don't like him. His own people don't. No, they don't like him. He hasn't, done anything to win friends in the legislature. And this is, lowering the tax and following in the footsteps of Kansas at this time is just not a good thing to do for.
How about following in the footsteps of the federal government?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the jury's still out on that. You have some benefit up front on this tax reduction, but, we have to wait and see what really happens, what the real impact of this thing is. So before
Patrick, where are you on Missouri tax cuts?
I think the governor's approach, and as much as he wanted to keep it revenue neutral, was exactly right. We can talk about how much government ought to be taxing and how it ought to tax and the size of government. I think the governor separated these out and said, look, we want to tax a different way. We give out out an awful lot in corporate tax cuts and subsidies, just like we do in Kansas City. Let's get rid of those. And if we get rid of the handouts to a few people, we can lower taxes for everyone. That's a much better system.
It looks like a pretty dramatic drop for corporate taxes, but it's really not, is it? Because there are, as you suggest, other measures included in the tax bill.
What politicians like to do in Jeff City and in Kansas City is play favorites, right? They collect taxes from everybody and then they want to give it out to individuals that are close to them. And that's not only inefficient, it doesn't work, it's just wrong.
Is the Republican resistance in Missouri caused primarily, do you think, Sean, by what happened in Kansas?
Oh, I think it might be that, although I think Laura said here is that this is exactly what's going on, is that we've got, you've got the own Republican Party does not support this governor, and so that's part of the resistance. I think part of it too is just what are the details of this plan. I mean, if like Patrick says it's just a matter of redistributing and changing where things are at, let's have that discussion. Let's look at it and see if there are people who aren't paying what they should be paying, and that's fine. But the real question here is, like you said, how much taxation should there be? And is there anybody at this table that thinks the roads in this state are in too good a condition? Are the schools doing too well? Is tuition at colleges and universities in Missouri too low?
Well, apparently so, because they're having trouble attracting people.
I don't think so. Yeah. So
if you look at government services and say, here's what we've got versus our dream world of what could be, of course you're always going to come out and say, let's spend more money.
It doesn't function. I'm like, the government is actually functioning at a level and doing its job, and it's in a lot of cases it's not.
Well, the problem is because government is
taxes has to look at
government is the least efficient way to spend money. If you want better roads, there are better ways to do it. But giving the government more and more money and saying fix it doesn't work.
Hang on a second. I want to go back to Laura. It surprises me, and I wonder if you're surprised as well, that somebody with such strong credentials as Eric Greitens, he was a Navy SEAL, Rhodes Scholar, has a doctorate in something, has gone to Oxford, as I recall. Why would somebody with those kinds of credentials, very charismatic guy on television, why would he be having such problems, aside from his marital difficulties?
Being brilliant doesn't mean that you're going to be an effective elected leader. And I think there are just a lot of things in the nature of politics that he probably wasn't aware of, that he didn't need to go to be a Rhodes Scholar. He's very bright. I think he's very well intentioned, but he needs to vet this through with the other folks to see whether it's the right. Because I agree with Patrick. It's, what's the right level? I'm also reeling from Kansas, where they just really missed the mark on going down on taxes, and that did a little bit of damage to our budget and our economy.
And let's remember, too, that the legislature is going to score this proposal on its own. It will come up with a fiscal analysis, which will tell us how close to revenue neutral does it get.
Right.
All right. If it proves nothing else, the dueling memos from the House Intelligence Committee about the Trump-Russian investigation prove Democrats and Republicans see events quite differently. And if you watch more than one cable news channel, you will find that news events are reported and analyzed quite differently as well. Watch Fox News and MSNBC or CNN discuss the memos, and you might come to believe you live in parallel universes. So how in the world did we get to this point where roughly one half of the country believes one thing, the other half the opposite? Has it always been this way? Will it ever change? Let's start with Sean.
Well, I don't think there's anything new here. I mean, there's always been yellow journalism. We've always had conservative papers and liberal papers. And there's always been a segment of Americans who believed in pseudoscience and conspiracy theories. But what we have now, I think the difference is we have mainstream voices, establishment voices, who are basically dismissing scientific facts, and they use scientific uncertainty in public discourse. They use it incorrectly to sow doubt. And I think what we have now is a real problem of what is truth, and it's an epistemological crisis. I mean, what if Mueller comes out with actual hard evidence? We have who knows if it's collusion or it's money laundering.
Or it's nothing.
Or it's nothing, and you're going to have nobody believing it. Well, and this is the FBI, which is the bastion of the part of government that conservatives have always liked. And now we've got a third of the country that thinks the FBI is just full of corruption and it's all political.
Well, there is you would agree there's some strong evidence that some at the top may have engaged in something less than appropriate behavior.
There may be. I mean, but I don't think some text exchanges between a couple of FBI agents shows
someone's political
corruption.
Views and don't have, you have to be able to separate the fact that these FBI agents have their political preferences. Because a person becomes an FBI agent does not not mean that they have to now become
Well, it becomes a
neutral.
problem when that
They
person
don't have to-
involves with the
No.
questioning of Hillary Clinton as someone who is dramatically
But that
opposed
has
to
nothing to do
Donald
with how
Trump.
they do their job.
How do we
I
know
mean,
that?
You need to be able to
We don't know
separate
that.
those
So
two.
that's the question.
Yes.
I think
That's
what's
the
clear
question.
is that there are a few people at the top of the FBI who maybe have gotten themselves in trouble. And this is independent of the Nunes memo. This is Michael Horowitz, the internal affairs investigator for the FBI. Andrew McCabe.
Inspector General.
Inspector General, thank you. Andrew McCabe stepped down because apparently he learned of the emails on Anthony Weiner's hard drive and did nothing about it for weeks. I think this is the sign of a healthy democracy, a healthy oversight, even if it looks ugly in the short term. This is why we have a legislative body, to look with skepticism at the executive and to report and to dig around. And frankly, I think the Democratic memo should be released, and I think the underlying factors, the evidence
I
behind
think
it
we
should
ought
be
to point out
certainly
that the FBI doesn't oversee Congress. Congress oversees the FBI, and
Well,
sometimes we
you can
seem
be-
to tend to forget that.
Well, you can be forgiven for that because the FBI, which now is skeptical of what the memo says, dragged their feet for months giving them the information in the memo.
Laura, what does it say about our politics, the state of our politics, when some members of the Congress refuse to stand when the President of the United States walks into the room, or fail to applaud when he's talking about things that all Americans should agree with, not a Republican thing, not a Democratic thing, but people are living better, unemployment's going down, that type of thing?
Well, I mean, I think you've got to respect the office whether you like the president or not. And, you know, I think people that are in those different elected positions, I think the office deserves respect. And I do have a problem with the loss of decorum. I think that's a real problem.
And Republicans have done some of that in the past.
Republicans
And
have
the
done it
office
past.
needs to respect the people as well.
And you're going.
It has to be
and
both
you're going
ways.
to lose. I mean, we're going to lose a lot if we just continue on this. Well, I'm going to do it because he did it or she did it or.
What's important here is not how people are treating Trump; it's how people are going to treat the next president, and we are on a slide downward. But having said that, House members used to duel. They beat each other almost to death on the Senate floor. So we've had this problem with decorum. I'm not willing to say that.
And they've also said terrible things a lot with a lot more flowery language.
Right.
With the whole
My
tone
distinguished
of
opponent
respect.
is a liar, yeah.
It comes from the top.
The whole tone
You know?
of respect and civility has diminished.
Well, what
under
about the
this- in this
mainstream
White
media?
House.
Have you ever seen, like, the New York Times now calling a president a liar in a news story?
Well, when the president continues to
lie.
spew
Well,
falsehoods,
that's
eventually
somebody's
you have-
opinion. We
you have
don't
to
know
go
that.
down.
They're demonstrable lies.
You
Well,
have
and there are
facts.
demonstrable examples of newspapers and news programs going to extremes when they are not being extremes that have occurred.
Sure. And you know what? Most reputable news will come out and say, you know, we got this wrong, and they will do a retraction.
Who do we turn to for?
Where's this president ever said he was wrong?
Who do we
Once.
Who do we
Once
turn?
has he said
Who do
he's
we
wrong?
turn
Never.
to for factual recitation of the news? Where do we get it? Where can I be assured that I'm
Mike
reading
Shannon
the
is my
straight
answer.
story?
Yeah, there you go.
Aside from that,
I think you
New
can't
York
anymore.
Times?
I
Look,
think
you were
Washington
foolish.
Post
does a pretty
You were
good job.
foolish
They're right
to
down the
ever
middle.
look to one outlet for the
Yes,
absolute
Right,
truth.
you have to look.
Certainly now more than ever, you need to shop around. I tell my children, when you read something in the paper, wait 3 days before you react because who knows what will happen.
Well-
We need to settle down. We need to read more and different sources of information and not get caught up, not look for the hot take, not look for the immediate reaction.
This goes back to my honors government teacher in high school, and he told us that you can never just take one version. He said you need to read several different
Absolutely.
versions, and so that you're able to form your own opinion. Because if you only watch CNN, you're going to hear
Or
one
Fox
thing. If you only
News.
watch Fox, you're going to hear another thing, and you need to be able to balance. Although some of it's become entertainment as opposed to straight up.
And it's
well,
an-
my
that's
opinion
when-
is we
that's
have
when
to
we
stop
lost our
now
way.
because it is time to head to the soapbox for Roast and Toast, where the Ruckettes have 30 seconds each to condone or disown people and events in the news.
Start with me.
Laura, you don't want to start? Well, let's start with Gwen then.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to roast the West Wing of the White House, including President Trump, his Chief of Staff, General Kelly, Rob Porter. This behavior in the White House and the manner in which we treat women is unconscionable. For General Kelly to know that Rob Parker has these allegations of spousal abuse in his record and to allow him to have that access to the White House and to perform in this manner is just flat out wrong. For General Kelly to dig in and to say that Rob Porter is someone of integrity, seriously, we've got a big problem in the White House, and my God, I hope we solve this, fix it soon.
Sean.
Well, last Saturday, defenders of freedom marched through downtown Lawrence to counter-protest a supposed drag the flag rally that looks to have never been actually a real event and quite possibly was made up just to troll both people on the left and the right to see if they could stir some trouble. So just how these freedom fighters, though, show their support for America? Well, of course, they flew the American flag and sported their guns. But they also felt it was necessary to yell racial and homophobic slurs at people on the streets of Lawrence. And then, of course, waved the flag of the Confederacy in their little parade. So, you know, the flag that was the most serious act of treason ever committed in U.S. history. So I think if there's a flag that needs to be dragged, it's that traitorous symbol of the Confederacy. And it needs to be dragged down Main Street, burned and thrown in the trash heap of history.
You have a unique perception of 30 seconds. Patrick.
My toast is for Reconciliation Services, an Eastern Orthodox organization just a few blocks from here, which works with people in the neighborhood. Kansas City has an unfortunate past of unequal development in Kansas City. Even our economic development policy today largely takes from the poor to give to the rich. Reconciliation Services seeks to stand in the gap of those services and turn Troost Avenue from a dividing line into a gathering place.
Much to your regret, Laura, we can't go to you for a roast or toast while at a time. And that is Ruckus for this week. We're back next Thursday at 7. Now for the Ruckettes and the crew, Mike Shannon saying thanks for watching and good night.